For our Savon Beldi or Savon Baldi as some people call it, or hammam soup. These types of soup are more popular in the northern part of Africa and in the Mediterranean. It's often made with olive oil. However, you can make it with any oil at all that you have access to, and it makes economical sense to use. What we're aiming for is right from the beginning of the soap making process. We're going to dehydrate the water as quickly as possible. The reason why we do this is because once all the water dehydrates, or as much of the water dehydrates, it forces the soap to turn black quicker. Savon Beldi is much darker than the Ghana black soap. So that is all we're doing here. You put your water and everything together in your pan. With Savon Beldi, I'm happy to use a pan that is not stainless steel because we're aiming for a darker looking soap. So you can use an aluminium pan. This stainless steel pan I've been using for years, so the bottom is darkened, and what I realize is before my pan had a blackened bottom, it didn't used to affect my the color of my soap so much, but these days I notice that when I make soap it turns darker much quicker, and I put this down to the fact that the bottom is blackened. I think it's just really wearing out. It's been a really good saucepan. It takes 18 liters, so I can cook a lot of soap in it. Right, what you can see here is the smoking. This is what I try to avoid when I'm making African black soap. I really hate the smoking because the smell is not very nice. I would also provide you a recipe and a video tutorial on how to make Savon Beldi using potassium hydroxide, and you make that version in a crock pot so you can avoid the smoking stage completely. But when you're using the saucepan and when you're using potash, you can't avoid the smoking. However, this process has eliminated the drastic amount of smoking that you would endure because we're cooking with a stainless steel rather than any other type of pan. When you add more water to your soup, always remember that it brings down the amount of smoke you have to endure. But because this recipe is for a beldi, we needed it to darken. So hence we cooked all the water out from the early stages, and it forced the sediment, which is the oil and potash combination, to darken. And as time goes on, your soup cooks just like any other black soup recipe, except it's much darker in comparison. So if you look at the original Ghana recipe video, you would see the difference between the two. So it's practically the same soup that we've made here. The only difference is that we dehydrated the soup much quicker and early on, and you do this by having a really high temperature. But otherwise the process remains the same. As you can see, the cooking has gone through the same stages. Because the temperature is higher here, the soup also tends to cook much faster. Right, so I'm going to test the soup to see if it's finished cooking, and I do this by dropping a piece of the soup into cold water. When the soup is completely cooked, it takes longer to dilute, so I'm just going to lift it out so you can see. So it's wet, but it's not melting so quickly, and it remains in a semi-solid form, so it's cooked. Also, when your soup is completely cooked, it tends to have a translucence to it. And I'm just going to test to see the lathering of the soup. What I find is when you first finish your cook, sometimes you don't get as much lather, but in a few days time when you come to test again, you get much more bubbles. So this is once you know that your recipe, you've checked your recipe through a soap calc and you're satisfied with the properties of the soap you're going to be making. When you do the test, if you do not see the lathering, do not panic yet, because sometimes it takes a while for you to see the lathering abilities of your soap.